Welcome to Tattoo Tabletop. My name is James, and today things are a little different because NVIDIA decided to no longer support the digital camera I use on my desktop, and I can't use my headset either. So we're going to have to throw this together a little bit. But basically today I wanted to talk about my biggest changes for the Battlescroll update that just occurred for Age of Sigmar. Obviously, there's a lot of changes to go through. I'm just going to go through some of my biggest ones, what I kind of think about them, and we're just going to keep it nice and short today because we're having trouble. So, of course, if you like me covering this content, feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Did you like the Battlescroll? Did it update your faction nicely? Throw some likes on that. Let's get started. So at the time, I will have had this recording, hopefully. So let's get into it. So first things off, just to I actually want to start with the article itself because the article itself is going to change a few things. Now, this is the biggest thing that has changed into competitive gameplay that I think is going to make a huge difference, and that is the double turn, the way that works along with the underdog. So I'll read what they have on the article here, and then I will go ahead and jump into my own thoughts and, of course, the actual Battlescroll update itself. Priority roll. We've tweaked the way that the priority roll interacts with the underdog mechanic so that if you take a double turn, your opponent counts as the underdog for the rest of the battle, sub parentheses, or until they take a double turn and make you the underdog. This change is designed to help mitigate players going all in on an early double and then benefiting from the underdog bonus, even though they likely have an advantage. We've also adapted a popular mechanic from Spearhead where you can take a double turn without penalty if you are 6 or more victory points behind in the game. This means you can still pick a tactic and your opponent doesn't automatically count as the underdog, which helps give you a fighting chance back in the battle. So let's break down this little whole bit in two parts. So number one, if you take a double turn, your opponent is automatically the underdog. Now, I do appreciate the little explanation after that, saying that this change is designed to help mitigate players going all in on an early double and then benefiting from the underdog bonus. Uh, you know, Admittedly, that's not something I particularly caught. Where someone takes a double intentionally, This is the thing that I'll talk about more than as a proper concern. I'm always afraid of people intentionally submarining. Submarining, for those who don't know, is where you intentionally start your score low and then rise to the top. There are people who have done it in tournaments. Some extremely competitive players have been accused of doing it in Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, everything. It's basically where you intentionally score low so that your pairings later in a tournament, or in this case, your game, score-wise, goes up incredibly after. So I do appreciate that mechanic. Part two, where you can take a double turn without penalty if you are 6 or more victory points behind in the game. Still not sure how I feel about this because in Age of Sigmar, you score 4 points if you get your battle tactic, and most of the time you score 2 points if you have an objective. So that's one objective and one battle tactic. I don't know if that's far enough behind for that to make the best difference. I feel like 6 points may be a little too close, but let's just jump into the actual Battlescroll summary itself. Season rules 2024 2025. If you take a double turn, your opponent is the underdog for the rest of the battle or until they take a double turn. So the way I'm interpreting that is no matter what happens, if your opponent doubles you, you are the underdog for the rest of it, 5 CP, guaranteed. Second bullet point, if you are losing by 6 or more VP, you do not suffer any penalties for taking a double turn. You can pick a tactic. Opponent doesn't automatically count as the underdog. So basically, if you get doubled by your opponent, you are now the permanent underdog. And then if you're losing by 6 points, you can double turn. And then I think you still count as the underdog. I think this is where it gets kind of confusing because technically then you're double turning and doesn't automatically count. Yeah, see, I feel like this is the part that needs clarification, or I just need to read through it a little bit more, because if you double into them and you're 6 points or less, then you're technically you're no longer the underdog because you doubled until you take a double turn. You took a double turn, you're no longer the underdog. So very confusing anyway. And then of course, if you're losing by 6, you still get a battle tactic. All right. So That is a huge change, honestly. We have a GT this weekend in Minnesota. I'm going to help run it, I believe. So I'm going to talk with my teammates on that one and try and get a better beat on that, because it is a little confusing and it should be clarified a little bit more. I understand their intent and what they're trying to do, but I also feel like as a whole, it's a difficult mechanic to try and balance, and I appreciate their attempt to balance it, but simultaneously, I think it's leading to more confusion than anything else. We'll break that down a little bit later. Other major change: there are two new honor guard abilities, and specifically, players with more regiments than their opponent can use a second honor guard ability on a unit in another regiment. So that's huge. That does make a huge difference. Let's take a look at those. So you still have your special assignment, bodyguard, priority target. They have been updated a little bit, nothing too crazy, but the specific ones: field sergeant, pick a friendly non-fly infantry hero not leading a regiment to be that regiment's honor guard. You can pick a unit in reserve. Add 2 to the move characteristic of friendly non-fly infantry models while they are wholly within 12. Now, the way I understand that is that's to help certain factions, like i.e. Fire Slayers, that are slow. They move 4 inches, they're going nowhere, and they're all foot heroes. So, except for the Rune Father, Rune Son, and Rune Smiter. I don't like that they're trying to use season rules to fix that faction, because they also got significant points decreases. But at the same point, I guess I'll take what I can get. I think Fire Slayers are in a place that they're going to need a full rework. And I'm sorry, GW, you cannot just copy pasta the rules. It is not going to fly for that. Part 2, Prized Beast. Pick a friendly, non-unique monster in, but not leading, a regiment to be that regiment's honor guard. You can pick a unit in reserve. This unit can ignore the effects of battle damage ability. In addition, add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by the honor guard. This ability affects companion weapons. Some people looked at that as a bit of a nothing burger. I actually think that's kind of nice, because most of your monsters, as we all know, are hitting on 4s default. So now that's bringing them up to 3s, which is really nice. I think that they're going to be capped at that. So you shouldn't be able to do an all-out attack and move it up to 2s, because it's not changing your actual score. It's modifying. But that is kind of nice. And it affects companion weapons, which obviously, if you're on a monster, you're probably a companion weapon, all things considered. So that's 2 major changes, adding that into the foray. I think Field Sergeant is going to see a lot of play, because there's a lot of people who have infantry who are going to want to get their infantry moving. That makes sense to me. But for the most part, I don't think anything too crazy here. It's, we still have, priority target. We still have the bodyguard. They did specify in the bodyguard regiment now that they also changed it so that neither regiment's honor guard nor the regiment's leader could have charged for bodyguard. That is important, because that was kind of getting used, I believe, from Stormcast. They would have Krondis or Karazai, or I think it's Krondis, would charge, and the Praetorians would charge behind them, -1 to the attacks, and they get the ward. So they changed that, so that's covered that. So I appreciate that. But that's 2 of the bigger changes there. So again, like I said, I want to keep this video a little bit short. There's a lot of changes in the Battlescroll. I highly recommend looking it up. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think that this is going to make a huge difference in terms of the priority role? Or, changing the double turn? Do you think that it's going to change and shift the way that the meta works going forward? I think it might a little bit. I still think that there's some clarity that needs to be made. But that being said, I'm excited. As always, I'm excited for any sort of change. I think it's a growth of the game. I think it changes up the meta. It changes the way you're playing, and especially for people who do play a lot competitively, it's just kind of fresh, keeps you interested. I know some people, this is kind of a double-edged sword. Like, oh, well, I didn't get any games with this before, so now I have to change the rule. I guess them's the breaks. Sorry, but that's just kind of how it is. So we got a Battlescroll update. We got a lot of really good changes, a lot of major points changes. Some abilities for my cities of Sigmar got changed, which I am very, very excited about. Fire Slayers are trying to get fixed with some points and the Field Sergeant ability, because they just have 8 million heroes. But I don't know how big of a difference that's going to make, but we're going to find out. So thanks for tuning in to Tattoo Tabletop, and go paint something, I guess.